John Amato is with us. He publishes Crooks and Liars. He's a publisher and co-founder of crooksandliars.com, a great website to track every day. But he's also the author of Over the Cliff, How Obama's Election Drove the American Right Insane. John, welcome to the program.
Hey, Tom, it's great to be here. How are you?
I am super. Joe Scarborough this morning said that Obama's base must be furious with him that he did this when, in fact, they didn't want him to find Osama Bin Laden and certainly didn't want him to kill him. I don't understand if that's true, A, why Obama campaigned on that in 2008 on finding and killing Osama Bin Laden, and B, why all those people showed up at the White House last night to party.
You know, you can never take anything that conservatives say with much of a grain of salt because they don't really make any sense. Obviously, we do know that President Obama campaigned on finding bin Laden, and to one of the deficiencies and major deficiencies of President Bush was that he couldn't find Osama bin Laden, and actually at one point said that he didn't even think about him anymore, and then he shut down the group that was looking to track him.
Right.
So it's a bizarre thinking on Joe Scarborough's part, but it just shows how torn conservatives are because across the country, most Americans are very happy by this news, and how do conservatives react? Instead of having joyful, feelings and saying, we got the guy that did this horrible thing on U.S. soil, they're trying to find ways to sort of not even attack Obama, but the base. The base
Right.
didn't want them to catch. Well, of course we wanted him caught. I mean, I don't know about you, but 9/11 affected me profoundly. I grew up in New York. I grew up in Queens. I went to Hunter College. That's my campus was Lexington and Park Avenue and Central Park. And watching those towers collapse had just a huge effect on me. And my father was a member for years of Engineers Local 94, and many union members were killed on that day trying to help people get out of the building. And my father was always upset that union members, especially his friends, weren't talked about more. So. It is a day, as you can see what's happening in New York and across the country. People are celebrating, and we get, jerky Joe Scarborough just trying to throw cold water when there is none to be thrown.
Well, and not only that, speaking of your father and his friends, the engineers who worked in those buildings, many, during the Bush administration, they were actually cutting funding to first responders. Republicans put a hold on the bill for 2 years. It took 2 years before the Democrats and the media were actually able to publicly shame the Republican Party to the point where they would come up with some money to pay for these guys who are coughing blood out of their lungs today as a result of what they did.
Absolutely. I had a close friend who was a lieutenant on the ground in the fire department there, and he was retiring right after that, and he wound up staying on 6 months later, and he was elevated to a captain. And to this day, he coughs, and to this day, he has problems breathing.
Right.
And it was a shameful act. And isn't it funny? It was of all people, Jon Stewart, who brought this, who gave this extra media attention. It actually forced our own mainstream media to cover it because they were refusing. They were treating it like partisan politics. They refused to cover that issue. Once it got brought out into the light, then suddenly first responders were taken care of. It's a shameful act. And when Americans try to say that conservatives care about national security and about the military, and the police and the firemen. Well, we understand. That's just not so. They're used, unfortunately, as political pawns and tools all the time.
As props, basically. We're talking with John Amato, the publisher and founder of crooksandliars.com, and the author of Over the Cliff, How Obama's Election Drove the American Right Insane. Speaking of insane, Saturday night, I was about 3.5 feet away from Donald Trump and his, fifth wife or whatever. I'm two questions. Number one, what's next for the birthers? I know you've been writing about this. My theory is they're going to start claiming that Obama not only was not born in Hawaii, that he was actually born on the planet Klingon, and because he's so cool and collected, right? He can't be a human. Right. And secondly, I think I've solved the mystery of Trump's hair. From looking up close, it looks to me like plug's gone wrong that he's doing a forward comb over on. But that's just a guess. What are your thoughts?
Well, he probably uses heavy Vitalis, right? Yeah. But like the fringers, and now we're calling them afterbirthers. They will never stop. So it doesn't really matter. Obama could have led a procession to the hospital in Hawaii, invited the most rabid psycho birthers, right, like the Pam Gellers and the Alex Jones and all these crazies, and went down into a vault and produced the book and opened it up, and they would not believe it.
Sure.
And so, we've seen, I've posted it, I wrote a post about it, and as many people have, where they're claiming that it's got to be a fraud because you can open it up in this Adobe Photoshop, and it'll go on and on. They'll check
right.
to see if there's a smudge, right? If there happens to be a speck of dirt in the wrong place, that means it's a forgery. Whenever, here's a rule of thumb for most Democratic politicians: whenever a Republican throws out a lie or a smear that's easily deflected, you usually don't come back and try to either justify it or even apologize for something that if it was misunderstood, because an apology only breeds more attacks. But I think what Obama was doing was not to, he did this to shame the media, because once, Donald Trump started opening his mouth, suddenly, it was birther nonstop on television.
Yeah, and for 5 days.
For 5 days.
When we should be talking about the budget. And I'll tell you, last night, Donald Trump looked like one very angry man.
Oh, my God.
Or night before
I
last.
can imagine. But if I was next to him, I wouldn't have been that quiet.
Oh, well, if you were next, you should have seen the people sitting on the table around him who work for him. They were like, you could see their faces cracking because they were working so hard not to laugh. Anyhow, John Amato, his book Over the Cliff, also crooksandliars.com. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Tom.